My name is Richard Glosser. I'm president of Hilltop Digital. Welcome to Content Discovery in a Multi-Platform World. Clearly, today's consumers' viewing habits are evolving. We are approaching 30 million Netflix subscribers. Microsoft has over 46 million Xbox subscribers. Comcast just announced that their customers are watching 400 million hours of on-demand programming each month. A recent study that has certainly been oft-quoted indicates that over 2/3 of people are using another device while they're watching video content on television. This has led to an increasing array of devices, streaming services, content choices, and formats for consumers to navigate. More and more, when you sit down on the couch to be entertained, you're looking at, do I watch live TV or something from my DVR, or is it VOD or an OTT device, or something from the web that I'm going to shift and watch on any of my different tablets or smartphones. So today's panel, we're hoping, will help you to understand how video discovery is evolving, how producers and programmers are thinking about making their content more discoverable, how business models are changing in this unbundled, non-linear world. So we've got a great group of panelists that I'd like to introduce as we talk about this topic. And I'd like for each panelist to just give a minute or two on who they are and their company, starting with Tom Wild.
Great, thanks a lot. So I'm Tom Wild, the CEO of Ramp, and we make video valuable. So our search and video publishing platform helps our customers drive more discovery of their content across the big search engines and social sites, better engagement with the content by being able to contextually match other kinds of content with a video clip and vice versa, and better monetization. So we can help target ads to videos and derive more value from those videos over time. It's a SaaS-based platform, and we work with major media companies across North America and a bit outside the United States as well.
I'm Tara Mitra. I work for TiVo, and I have responsibility for our content partnerships as well as ad sales and a little bit of research. I guess what I could say about TiVo that's relevant for this panel is that you may think of TiVo as the brand name of DVR, but over the years we've really changed into becoming TiVo's always stood for being the best way to experience TV, but now it is much more about that complete video experience, whether it's linear television, cable video on demand, or all of the over-the-top content that we've aggregated. So we'll get into more detail on the panel, but it's definitely not your grandmother's TiVo.
I'm J.R. McCabe. I'm the head of video for Time Inc. We have some brands we feel are iconic. Hopefully you agree. We have brands that really have started to come to life in sight, sound, and motion recently, and my job is to develop and create, distribute, monetize, and strategically build video experiences across our own sites and other platforms. Take a look at our consumer habits, how they're consuming, how they're evolving and changing, and how we can better serve them, and then also build a larger audience. So that really encompasses our 21 brand portfolio, both domestically, and then we have a little bit as well worldwide.
My name is Megan Elrule. I lead client service and analytics at Trender. Trender, we have two pieces right now to our business, and the first is with social TV analytics. So we're measuring multiple sources. We're the only independent supplier for social TV analytics, multiple sources that measures social media around television programs. We also are a curation platform, so we help to curate content for discovery and for consumer engagement.
Great. Well, so a terrific panel of different perspectives that I hope will make for a good discussion. So one of my favorite parts of coming to the streaming media is to see what Dan Rayburn's put together, where he puts all the devices out in the demos area, and it's overwhelming. And so I guess the first question is sort of what's state of the state here? How are people navigating this spaghetti world that I've described, and what is it that you guys think is working? And I'm going to start with Tara, because TiVo has such a great perspective on this.
So I think when we went from, and if you want to kind of start with the TV, and we'll make for a moment the assumption that the TV is still maybe the preferred viewing experience for video, that you went from a 30-channel universe to a 500-channel universe, and now a world where through devices like TiVo and Roku, internet-connected televisions, what cable's doing, millions of pieces of content. And so I think that the real challenge for companies in this space to provide the best entertainment experience for the consumer is about the user experience and search and discovery of content. I think anyone can agree, even if you look at your own video, TV experience at home and the devices that you have, there's really no lack of or shortage of content. There's no shortage of choice. But now, so the challenge is, it used to be from, well, you want to give the user choice and control. I think we have choice and control, but now we have so much content, we don't necessarily have the best way to find it. With so much content out there, consumers will still say, there's nothing to watch on television. And part of that is just because you might have Comcast as your provider and have hundreds of thousands of hours of content, and you don't even know it's there. And so what we focused on at TiVo, and what I think it's important for other companies in the space to focus on, is bringing that user experience so that whatever you're searching for content-wise, you can get the search results that are related to linear television, maybe cable VOD, maybe over-the-top content. What we focused on at TiVo is trying to simplify that experience so that there's one user interface, one search mechanism, one discovery process, one remote control, and overall that can lead to a better consumption experience and ultimately improves the revenue model for advertising down the road.
And some of your customers are the cable operators where you provide that sort of search layer that on top of their service. It seems to me like that's critical of that one screen idea versus counting on the consumer to go to the remote and say, okay, do I want a web experience, I hit this button, or do I want a TV experience, I hit this button. It has to be one screen, doesn't it?
That's right. I mean, that's our view. I mean, we have always had a business where we sell direct to consumers, and that's been interesting, and that's allowed us to do a lot of innovation. Now, a lot of our growth is coming from our distribution relationships with U.S. and international cable MSOs. We announced another partnership yesterday. It brings us to a total of 10 U.S. cable operators and 3 internationally. But I think when people say to us, well, why now? Why are cable operators interested in working with TiVo now? I think it really is the TiVo user experience, the search and the integrated UI. When applied to all of the content that's offered from a pay TV operator, it makes that experience so much stickier and so much more usable, so that you're getting more value out of your pay TV as a subscriber than you would have otherwise. I mean, if you think of all of the devices that you might look at in a day, your tablet, your smartphone, your TV user interface, depending on what you have, can be pretty outdated. A lot of the TV guides, grid guides, haven't been updated. It's the same thing you've been looking at since the 80s, and that's not to criticize cable. It's to say
or the 80s.
So I think when you look at what the TiVo user interface brings to the cable experience, I might search for a show I care about, and I'm getting all of the search results of what's available on linear, where it is available on cable, when I can record it, and it unifies that experience. YouTube results of extra video clips that are related to the program. It just brings the full video experience and makes it a lot easier.
Other thoughts?
I think that there's a lot of second screen apps that are trying to do it right, but I think the consumer is really still looking for that one-stop shop option. I think it was Simul TV is a new app that's basically going to be everything live viewing, text and voice, your Facebook and Twitter all on one screen. So I think it's just still trying to find that right balance of what's distracting and what's actually relevant for the consumer. So I think they're still looking for that one-stop shop, but there's multiple second screen apps that are trying to get it right. I know that a lot of the MSOs now, your tablet can now become your remote, so you can use that their apps as the discovery mechanism. I know that we at Trender power the Dish app. So basically, we in real time are providing information on what TV shows are the most popular, around social chatter. And so that's a discovery mechanism that consumers can use that app, and then directly from that, the channel changes on their TV. So I think it's just finding that balance on what makes the consumer get what they need, but not be too distracting.
And is it going towards where not only what's most social, but you can see what your friends are watching as a way to navigate? I think that.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely the way that things are going. You can see what your friends are watching, what's the most, so it's what's most relevant in your social circle. But then, how the DVR is moving forward to maybe in the future where your friends are talking about it, but you're not part of the conversation, you're away, you're not even at home, wherever you may be. And then your DVR will automatically record what your friends are talking about it, so you don't miss it. So then you can still be part of the conversation, and it automatically DVRs it for you. So then you can come back and see it.
Go ahead, I'm
I
sorry.
was going to say, I think that Megan brings up a great point. One thing we recently announced, maybe last week, is something that we call What to Watch Now. And we have added to the TiVo app this feature that, based on not only recommendations, but it's also incorporating, the recommendations are based off of trends, user preferences, and then by region and personal preferences in 6 different categories, telling you as a user what's on at that moment within the next 30 minutes in the category of children's, movies, your favorite channels, what you've recorded already on your DVR, and sports. And so, again, as you're trying to simplify this experience of what should I watch right now, in addition to all of the other means available, you can just go to this app and literally see what's live right now in these different genres.
JR, you have tremendous content that you're putting out in lots of different places. At the end of the day, do you care where they access it as long as they find it? Is that, or?
That's a bit of a loaded question. I think we do care. But no, your point is right. I mean, we look at it, Richard, what Tara and Megan are saying is kind of one of our greatest challenges, right, is discoverability. I think we have a very unique brand equity position, but for us, I look at really 3 things, right? It's about scale, context, and quality are really where we're looking to be. We need to make sure that our brands are in a context where we can have them discovered and go more deeply, right? We want an engaged consumer. We need scale because, there are so many choices, and you've talked about it before. There are so many choices that I would love to do deals on every platform we can create and find. That's not a business model I can substantiate, right? Because I can't go out and build an app for every specific device and be native everywhere. I can't do that and make it make sense. So if we can create opportunities at scale where there's really good context, that matters to me. So the answer to your question is, if we can put content in a good place where we control an ad position or have a revenue model against it, yeah, I'll take it. But we are trying to do a few things really, really well and then let it expand. I think also, as Megan talked about, we're all about socialization of content and how that content is becoming a trend, how it is becoming a conversation is what we're trying to be a participant in, not react to. And I think with our brands, people are looking to us and our brand equity to help guide them into what that content might be.
Can you give examples? You mentioned of you want a place where you have scale and discoverability. Can you mention where that's
Sure.
happening?
I mean, certainly TiVo could be a possibility as a conversation. In my prior life before coming to Time Inc., the larger MSOs had nice scale on the VOD platform. Problem there was, the UI was okay and you were 3rd or 4th generation down, you're 3 pages in, every click you lose somebody. I think the reality is some of the larger set manufacturers are going to have great distribution. I think Apple TV's got great distribution from a device, and Xbox One yesterday is going to make entertainment one of its key components. So, those are some that I would look at as keys, not the only ones, but those are some that could certainly make sense.
Yeah, and I think you have to unpack the problem a little bit more in terms of discovery to see why it's challenging, and then some approaches. The sort of internet nirvana is knowledge of the user, knowledge of content, right? It's that intersection where you kind of really solve it. And both are tricky when it comes to video in particular. So if you're talking about knowledge of user, you have the individual user. So in a living room, who is that if 5 people are watching? Is there a logged in state, et cetera? And then you have sort of aggregate users, sort of the Trender examples. What's getting buzzed right now? Knowledge of content, a lot of the content in the sort of the old linear world, you didn't need tons of metadata to make it discoverable, right? If it was in the TV guide, you were going to see it, and there was only 6 choices, and now there's unlimited choices. So the burden's now shifted back to the content producer, not even the distributor, but all the way back even to the production studio. We need full tags, transcripts, scripts, metadata, related content, all packaged with these assets so that it can be sort of born into the ecosystem in a way that's much more findable by the Googles and shared on Facebook and things like that. So if you kind of unpack all those problems, those are the things that have to be addressed to really get after the discovery problem across platforms, across devices.
It seems like we have certain practices that have been developed on the web that we're migrating to TV in that sense of metadata and targetability and some of the other, search, obviously. Is that, that's...
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's not that different than it is to figure out how to get an article discovered, but the problem with video is most of these systems run on text. Twitter is text. Facebook still runs primarily on text as a means to share things, URLs and links, even though the objects shared, might not be text. Certainly Google runs on text. So you have to sort of think about how you make videos behave a little bit more like documents to snap them into these existing ways that content gets sort of funneled around these different platforms and ecosystems.
Tara, we were talking and you were describing how you were catching up on Downton Abbey and you ended up finding each season on a different platform. I'm just sort of curious to...
I was embarrassed because I feel like we work in the whatever media. What space are we in? TV, web. But, and I had not seen any of the Downton Abbey, and it was in its 3rd season, and you're like on Facebook and people are saying, spoiler alert. I'm like, spoiler alert, I haven't seen the first episode. But anyway, I wanted to put TiVo to the test, and I came home and I searched for it, and I found that Netflix, I could watch season 1 on Netflix, season 2 on Hulu, and season 3, which was still going, I could record, and then also was going to be available from Amazon. And I thought, well, that's really interesting because we walk around all the time at TiVo talking to cable operators and trying to get this consumer message out that it's so great to have one device, one input, not to need to search multiple apps to find something for viewership on the TV or on your tablet. And I thought, do consumers really, I know we say it, but if you have to think deep down, do people really care about this? And it was the first time that I did. I did care. I searched for it, I found it and I watched it. And I really saw the value of having that unified experience. So.
Just following on this discoverability theme, Tom, you're talking about just the importance of kind of the annotation and the comments and social media mentions as a way. How does that, I certainly think for a live event or reality show that works. How on an on-demand environment can we make use of the annotation?
Well, I think it works in both, for sure. In an on-demand world, you have the opportunity to, sort of pre-package a whole bunch of related content objects, which can also help the discoverability and the engagement with that asset. The same is true of live. It's a more challenging technical problem because you don't have a script that you can start with. You have to actually index this content while it's happening and do that dynamically, which is possible, but is a different challenge. So I think, one is a question of sort of merchandising in the VOD space, and in live, it's more the contextualization of what's going on. And in the TiVo example, being able to sort of predict what's on next requires enough description of that asset, for these discovery engines to do their thing.
I think Tom made some great points around just engagement for live and VOD. But I think that Univision is doing a great, is pushing this forward with VOD with their new app. So basically what they have is that if you miss a live show and you DVR it or you VOD, or it's on VOD, then you can go to that app and they're actually curating the tweets or the content that's happening on social networks, and they're pushing it on the app. So you're watching, it syncs with your TV, and you're getting the content, the social content, at the exact same time as if you were watching it live. So I think there are ways where networks are trying to figure out the best method to having it work, social networks work with VOD. But I think Univision's on the right track for getting it, to work, because I think now with consumers, we're all so busy that DVR and VOD is becoming how we watch TV. So I think that they're going in the right direction.
Right, it's almost time shifting the entire context, not just the show itself, which is
Right.
kind of a mind blower, right? I don't want to see the tweets because there's spoilers in them and so forth, and so that's kind of a
Right.
fascinating new requirement.
So yeah, it's nice that they're able to, at least you're able to see the conversation that's happening. So even if you shut your Twitter off, so you don't see the spoiler alerts, you're still able to participate or at least view the content that's happening on Twitter as if you were able to watch live.
So does
Bringing
that,
the water cooler conversation right into your living room, right?
Right.
and it seems to point to how over time ACR, or automatic content recognition, becomes important. Then whatever that data is, if it has the time code on it to support mentions and when things are happening, you always have that ability to kind of sync up, which also, I would assume, becomes very important when you start to bring in advertising.
Yeah, I think that it's important in general, just because you're able to push relevant content at the right time. And so it's not just about, you push content when you can, it's about actually syncing it up to what's actually happening with the content that's on the first screen. So then you're able to, it's a synchronized experience.
But
I
how?
think that's,
Oh,
I
I'm-
I was going to say, I think that's important, especially because right now, when, I think there's not, when you look at second screen apps, the scale is still an issue, right? So, especially second screen apps that are associated with TV. If you're watching, I know there's, the Biggles and Get Clues and of the world that are trying to, build audience at scale. It's unclear yet what's going to be the way that people interact. Does it end up being, mainly Facebook and Twitter, or is there room for apps to exist? Will network apps be the apps where that conversation takes place? Will it be MSO apps ultimately that have enough functionality that there's multi-purpose so it keeps the consumer coming back, and then the networks end up syndicating content to them so that the social experience is happening there? I don't really know, but I think that the synchronization is obviously key, certainly for
Or is it more of
advertising.
an app store from the MSO that the networks build to, such that, because no one knows the metadata and the content about a show better than the producer of that show, right? So if you're going to have any deeply engaged, integrated experience, it has to come from the show itself. But yet, a consumer's not going to go in and out of every show a different app. So somehow they have to come together, don't they?
I think so.
I think, yeah, eventually. How many apps can your tablet hold? Ultimately, you're gonna reach a limitation. So I think that they're still trying to find that right balance. But once they do, I'm sure that there'll be a lot more consolidation to figure out what works. But I think it's hard for the MSOs to hold it all, because, like you said, the content, they don't have that extra content to push to keep the consumer engaged, even in between airings or, in real time. I think that that's probably a challenge at this point, not necessarily saying that that's not the future, but I think that's definitely a hurdle.
So you've found somehow the content, and now you want to try to create an audience flow of what to watch next. And how, certainly that's a hallmark of traditional linear TV. The networks spend so much of their time just promoting the next show and what else is on. That seems to get lost in this sort of on-demand, non-linear world. So how, JR, we were talking a little bit about how you're cross-promoting. How do you create an audience flow from one device or one platform to another, or in any way create a consistent experience in that?
Well, if I bought a TV network, that'd be good. But we don't have that, so every screen is kind of a platform for us. But no, Richard, it's a fair question. I think great brand equity for us matters. But back to Tom's point, the meta wrapper for us is kind of a key, because once you're able to get content which is well wrapped and can be optimized, you can recommend new content. So for us, whether it's a recommendation engine, whether it's putting modules in so that, Tara, Megan, Tom, I watch a piece of video, and up next to it, regardless of device, pops 3 other pieces that would likely flow into your mix because you were watching the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, and all of a sudden now we have an opportunity for you to see additional video. Or we had something from Syria, from Time, and here's the rest of what's going on in war-torn worlds, and other videos for you to see. So I think for us, it's about creating that ability to seamlessly recommend something that will fit your profile based on the data that we put into it and how we wrap it. And that for us is regardless of screen. We just need to have it done that way.
With a little dose of autoplay on the next video?
No. So very clear, Time Inc. We don't do that. We do allow if someone initiates. So if it's user initiated, we'll let continuous play go, but we won't autoplay it unless the user's initiated the experience.
Tom, what perspective can you bring on like what to watch next?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is because these two camps have really these two key assets, and neither of them has both. So you're going to see the distributors and the aggregators like the MSOs increasingly asking the content providers for more related content and metadata to help them with their discovery and recommendation efforts. And conversely, you're going to see the content providers increasingly ask their distributors and aggregators for usage data, right? So if it's second screen or TV everywhere or TV apps, JR may share that video across some of these different platforms, but he's going to say to them, hey, I need to know how much consumption you're getting on your platform of my content, because I need to have that as an input for recommendation engines and related content suggestions and planning, editorial planning about what to produce next. So I think you're going to see both ask the other for the crown jewels there so they can continue to improve their respective businesses.
Let's talk about measurement, because clearly if we're going to monetize anything, there needs to be an accepted technique to allow buyers and sellers to value the media. Trender, you're doing some measurement. I'd love to get your perspective, as well as Tara. You guys bought TRA and some of the things they're doing. So maybe just talk about measurement, Megan.
I think that right now we're measuring. So at Trender, we're measuring social interactions around TV. So I think that
without regard to platform, right?
Without regard to platform. So it's just any conversation that's happening about television. So we track multiple sources, and I think it's just about how engaging the content is, and that's we see for award shows, for instance, the frequency in which they're actually participating in the conversation is a lot higher than, say, dramas and comedies. But then yet, I think that it's all about just getting those unique experiences in there to have them participate in a more frequent, at a higher frequency.
And you guys are measuring reach and engagement?
Yeah, so we measure the unique users that are participating in the conversation. So you can see if your audience is growing over time. And then that ultimately would result in the frequency with which they're engaging, because we have the total volume metric, which is aggregating all of the platforms together to measure the actual interactions around television.
And can you give a sense for a highly engaged show? What % of the TV audience is active socially?
Well, obviously sporting events is really high, but the WWE wrestling, they have uber fans. On average, their frequency is anywhere from 3 to 4 interactions per unique user on any given night that it's on. And I know that a stat that they had put out on their app is that I think the WWE runs about 2 hours, and the fans will stay on their app all 2 hours consistently. Like, they don't leave. They're die-hard fans. So I think that it's just, they have they're getting the relevant content to them, and they're engaged, they're staying.
So I mean, social clearly helping them hold that audience and sustain.
Oh yeah, they're definitely using multiple platforms. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're even with their second screen app, and we don't even measure their second screen apps. So I'm sure that would even put them through the roof as far as frequency and time spent with the actual content that's not even on the first screen.
So Tara, a little bit about what you guys are doing with TRA.
Sure. We acquired a company called TRA last July. And what TRA does, we were actually a partner of theirs, an investor for a few years, and we licensed TRA TiVo data. But now it stands for TiVo Research and Analytics. But basically, TRA measures what a household has been exposed to from an ad perspective on television, and then marries that through a blind match through partners to purchase data. So what that really means is an advertiser can see what ads consumers have been exposed to on television, and then what in turn those same households are buying. And it's been particularly interesting for CPG. We have a pharmaceutical product, we have an automotive product, but in terms of bringing, I think we were talking earlier about bringing web experiences and web video to the television, and how much are we trying to bring web experiences to the television. Measurement, the accountability that is on the web certainly has never existed for TV. And so by using set-top box data, you can get a level of precision and accuracy that just doesn't exist otherwise. Obviously, Nielsen remains the currency for how media is bought and sold, but to really inform an advertiser or an agency's media planning decisions and to maximize that ROI, having this level of data, taking it all the way to the the consumer point of purchase is, I would have to imagine, is pretty compelling. I think, I don't think TRA is necessarily the full story where we are today. We've recently added online so that we can have a cross-media measurement platform. So now it's not just what you've been exposed to on television, but also what that same household has been exposed to online, and then what that same household is purchasing. So I think it's really interesting where this is going, even though it's slow moving. I mean, TV has been bought and sold for, 50-some years the same way. But having this level of information to understand how to reach that target audience is I think, the direction, and it's what advertisers say they want. It's what agencies say they want. It's just a matter of incorporating it.
Will that at some point include kind of evaluating the audience and the quality and the actions of an audience, whether it's on an ad on VOD versus online versus OTT versus linear? I mean, will it get to that point where it can then be able to help guide the right mix of media?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. It's first it was let's get to 2-screen, then 3-screen, then 4-screen. I think we're probably still at 2-screen, but and then in additionally, everything that Megan's talking about. I mean, that's even another step further. People say, well, what can you do with social? Well, I was actually talking to someone after a panel a few weeks ago, and the person was talking about, well, how do you interrupt what's going on Twitter and Facebook and bring a traditional ad model to it? And I thought, I don't know, is that really what you want to do? Do you want to bring a traditional ad model and force this interruption in what's otherwise a really natural occurrence of data, right? People's reactions, where what Trender is doing, if there's a way to incorporate that into the overall measurement piece, I think, again, it's going to take a lot of work, but now you're getting a complete picture of what's going on multiple screens, and then obviously the purchase is kind of the key at the end.
I mean, I think too, the social component right now is like supplemental to what's going on for the TV experience. So like when you're buying TV, if you have two shows that are neck and neck, then social is kind of like that added component that to say, oh, well, this show is more social, so we might get more reach on the social network side of it. So I think that it's just more of a supplemental right now, but I think that's only because there isn't that standard currency metric that people can buy and sell off of at this point. But I think that's the way that it's going. It'll definitely get there, but it's still early innings, and there's so many different players in the space right now. So I think it's still just hard to quite understand exactly what it means in terms of advertising on television.
Yeah,
Well, and
maybe it's best for, I don't know, I guess with all advertising, it starts as being best for promotion of content.
Right.
And then over time, it evolves.
Yeah, because we always get people to say, they come to us and advertisers and they'll say, how can I get my video to go viral? I don't know, good content, I guess, is a good place to start. I mean, so, they know that it's relevant and that social is a key component. They're still figuring out how to make it work.
We have some time for some audience questions. If anyone has a question, let us know. Yes?
Sure. So I think one thing that Tom hit right on the head was this conversation between content creators and distributors saying, please give us more information so we can make sure that the stuff is found. And of course, content creators wanted this feedback from distributors. That's a really important point, I think, about this discovery discussion. My question for the panel is around Twitter, actually, and around what you guys think of their efforts to be more of the main outlet where people discover video content and actually can view video content. Where people can actually post more clips into Twitter and have them be viewed there. And maybe even down the future, someone could just say, great goal by the Bruins in overtime, and Twitter can scan for that video content, maybe even embed that if they've got the rights and do an ad share with their owners. Is that happening? What's going to happen there?
I need to repeat the question. I've been asked to do that. So that was a long question, but you asked, what about the role of Twitter for both discovery, but also increasingly for consumption of very timely video, almost TV-like, right? So anyone want to?
I mean, I'll speak a little bit to it. We did a test. I joined Time Inc. in December. We've done some tests with Twitter. I think it's going to be interesting for discovery of video. I'm not sure yet that that's what that consumer base wants is an experience. We're not sure. I think for a socialization of content, it could be a start. It could be a place that leads you somewhere else for recommendations. I don't know that it's going to be a fully vetted viewing environment, but I think it's certainly worthwhile. The sheer scale of it alone dictates that we have to take a very serious look. It's certainly a qualitative environment and scalable environment and one you can moderate to a certain extent. But I think it's very, very, very early in that space. And again, I'm not sure that that's what that consumer base wants, to view a long-form piece of content in there.
But you certainly Twitter is the most dominant second screen platform.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's what Richard, I would agree that the scalability requires that we take a very hard look at how we populate that with video content and participate anywhere we can to test it. Again, I'm just not sure where length, duration, and visibility and compatibility with the experience is going to fall out.
What about Facebook?
Me again?
Anybody.
Okay. So Facebook, I think that it's a viable place. I'm glad to see more video there. We've participated with them, and we'll do some more of that. I think there is a bigger window, bigger viewing experience there, physically and literally. Again, the ability to share. We used Facebook a couple weeks ago to solicit questions. So we did something with Warren Buffett. We did a show called The Chat that we did with Fortune. It aired on CNN Money. We solicited the Facebook environment because we wanted a younger female audience who was talking about the lean-in conversation, and Warren was going to take a comment on that. And so we engaged the Facebook audience to participate through questions, which we then provided to Warren and created a cross-promotion. It's not the ideal perfect use of Facebook as a video window yet, but it's a participatory model, and it's something that we're looking at, and we'll probably do again.
I think there was a couple weeks ago in Boston, there was the TV Next Summit that Hill Holliday put on. And really, if you were to distill the day, the question was, does Twitter drive TV or does TV drive Twitter? And I don't think there was an answer, right? It was, there was no convincing data in either direction, although there was lots of data. And I'm not sure either. I mean, it's a fascinating question.
Well, maybe that's the circle. Yes?
The FCC ruling around 508 compliant captions, and if you're going to move it into IP territory, another platform, how is that affecting your business? Is there an opportunity there then to create better search data? And what about translating it into, for instance, Spanish? Does that give you further reach into another new market?
Yeah, on the web.
Will you repeat the question?
Sure. The question is about Section 508 and specifically the Communication and Video Accessibility Act of 2010, which Obama signed in October of 2010, which requires that if you take a piece of broadcast video and put it online, you now have to caption it. So that's the litmus test. If it ever aired on over linear, you now have to caption it if you put it up on the web. And there's various milestones. So it began with full-length content, then moved to clips, and eventually we'll include live in various stages. It's difficult for the broadcasters. It's painful. But it makes sense, right? I mean, if it's going to be online, it should be captioned as well. But to your point, I think it creates, the question was, does it create other benefits? And I mean, the way we look at it is it's more metadata, right? A good caption file is more metadata. The workflow is challenging because if you start to clip, a 30 or 60 minute long video and put it up on the web, a lot of times that breaks the caption, right? The caption exists with that master file, and as soon as you clip it, it vanishes. And so there's a bunch of workflows to put that in place. But this is the kind of metadata that I was referring to that creates a merchandising option around this content to make it much more searchable and discoverable. So you get kind of both policy compliance, you get sort of an altruistic sort of approach to making sure your content's accessible by hearing and visually impaired, and you get the business benefit of it being sort of automatically helping your merchandising efforts.
Yeah, I agree. I think that just having the metadata available, I know that it helps us in our search in what we're trying to do, because we'll do spark lines. What happened? What made it spark? 10 times the average for the show, and having that kind of metadata is helpful just for those search capabilities.
Other questions? Yes. Yes.
In the same vein, are any of you looking at mechanical Turk type tagging of content to improve discoverability? It seems like the emerging world's watching more and more TV, and they want to make a few cents tagging stuff. I don't know if anyone's taking that type of approach. This could be applied both to captioning, tagging, and adjudications that's judgments on captions and transcripts.
Will you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is sort of social-based tagging or mechanical Turk-based approaches for tagging of content or other metadata creation. We do it automatically. Our IP is to create automatic tags and caption content around video, but that's sort of tagging from within the video. I think you ask an important question, which is also what is the social opinion of what this video is about, and that can't necessarily be strictly derived from the video. You do need a sort of social approach, and maybe there's some comments up here for that as well.
So,
Sorry,
No
what's that to be?
so we have time for one more question, and I'm going to take liberty to ask it. If we look to the future, we talked a little bit about all the different devices and getting the service to be one screen that allows you to do everything. Is really the future here all about the tablet? I remember hearing Brian Roberts talk about envisioning a day where there's no set-top box and just have everything run in a tablet app environment. Is that where this all goes, and allowing everything to be pulled into one place and get rid of all the wires and boxes that we now all struggle with? Comments?
I'll take first. I don't know that it's the tablet, but I definitely think that everything will be migrated to one screen. You won't have to have, you could do it all on your tablet, so you have responsive design, so it would work on any screen or any device that you would want it to work on. But it ultimately would be everything in one. So you have your smart TV, so that would be everything that was on your tablet, but it's now on your TV, or vice versa.
I'll just hedge my bets and say I think it's a part of it, but I think the tablet experience that's putting a lot into one experience. So I think it's going to be a large part of it, but I'd be surprised if it was the only thing.
Yeah, I still think there are going to be multiple devices. I mean, a big expenditure for households is still a big screen TV. But I think that if there can be a unified experience as you move from device to device in terms of how to access the content, that's what's going to be the better experience for the consumer.
Yeah, I think the set-top box will go away, not necessarily to the tablet, but you will use your mobile devices to control the various screens in your house. The smart glass offering that comes with Xbox now is a good kind of, or Apple AirPlay. The Galaxy S4 has an IR blaster in the phone, so you can actually use it to as a remote control. So you're seeing that these mobile devices are going to be these control mechanisms for either a very big screen or other screens around the house.